me, when I was looking at these images for the first time, there was I was aware of this, of saying that, like, I knew my parents were hiding something from me, and in being pulled back into that, remembering what it was like, and hearing that, oh, it used to be so good, right? Just come back one more time, right? That still is a struggle for me. Now I'm a fully grown adult with a fully grown adult brain, right? We can't expect our kids even, to resist that temptation. Kids, I mean, it's even harder for them. So to try to put that on them, it's an adult-sized problem on a child, right?
So we mentioned that we'd be bringing you back, and so we had that opportunity today. As you can see, we're all wearing different clothes, and Cameron's got himself a haircut, same with me, so I think Chantal might even be sporting a new pair. Anyway, some of the things that you brought up in your testimony there were very powerful, and I know that some people are going through some of those things themselves and would like some insight, and so that's just one of the reasons we brought you back. We're also curious, of course, to see how you talked about when you were on your way down to Calgary and driving and asking for a friend. If only I had a friend, I think I remember you saying.
Yeah.
And you found that friend in Jesus, and so really was curious to know more about that. And, why don't we start with who's Jesus to you?
Jesus right now is, the center of my life.
Mm-hmm.
For me, my life it still feels, to some extent tentative. Not my salvation per se, but where my life is going.
Okay.
Right now, I feel very aware that I can't become complacent.
Mm.
And so I'm working as hard as I can to make sure that I keep Jesus in the center of my life. And I know that it's very tempting I'm tempted regularly to remove him from that spot.
Right.
So for me, right now, I put everything on Jesus. I talk regularly with him. What I'm working on right now is that I cannot resist temptation or sin. It's only through him that I'm saved from it.
Mm-hmm.
And so even in a day-to-day sense, I feel an urge to get angry, for example, and I just in that moment recognize that I can't stop this. I can't stop this this anger from taking me over, but I can pray, and and just remember that to hold on to him in that sense is what I'm doing right now. So it's I'm making some life changes. These take time, and sometimes a lot of it is just waiting with him,
Mm-hmm.
for the work to be done, for things to be ready to, things to kind of progress, as it were. So where I live next, for example, or what my next vehicle is, those will be choices that I'm going to make with him that I haven't made with him up until this point. So there's some of these things that just take time, as he, he'll instruct me as I go along, and he'll help me manage some of these decisions now as well that haven't been made with him, manage my way through them until such a time that I can make those decisions with him. So
Are you in the world? Are you in the Word? I mean, in the Bible? Are you?
Yeah.
Do you have a quiet time that you do yourself?
I have a lot of quiet time. I have to take a lot of solitude right now, especially with everything that has gone on. I'm easily overwhelmed,
Okay.
and I take a lot of time on my own, or not on my own, but take a lot of time away from others. So right now I spend, I'd say every day for the most part, right? Before I go to bed, I open up my Bible, and I'm going to, if I haven't opened it up already, it's usually at the end of the day, and I'm reading passages and just kind of seeing what what comes out, right? I just kind of flip to a random place. So at the very least, I'm doing that once a day before I go to bed.
Okay.
And then that's when I also do, at least, you know, if I haven't prayed at all that day, I'm praying as well and just saying, hey, thank you very much. But for the most part, I also pray when I get up, when I wake up. One of the first things I do is to pray, right? To just center myself, right? It's pretty often that I will reach for my phone. And so now what I'm trying to do is to just, but that's a great way to disrupt my day. So if I haven't reached for my phone, I'm going to pray, and so that I don't reach for my phone automatically. And if I have reached for my phone and I realize that I'm, getting myself upset in the first 5 minutes of being awake, then I'm going to put my phone down and ask for some help getting through that. So
Good for you.
yeah, and then it's again, like I said, throughout the day, I need to be focused on these things. That's how I'm going to get through the day. It's always just waiting, always just waiting for me. So.
How about reading the Bible? Do you do that daily?
Yeah, I would say most days. Some days I go to sleep without having opened it, but yeah, I'm spending more time in it these days trying to understand it. I've read it through recently, and I'm planning my next sort of how I approach it going forward. And there's a lot of information there, so I'm trying to find out how I put it all together and keep track of it all to some extent, because I think it is important to know the stories, and so yeah.
When I think about our previous conversation, I know that we talk about pornography, and I know that the enemy is really attacking our children. And I have been working for a while in mental health, especially with children. And that is something really in the world today. We need, by prayer, attacking the enemy, because that industry really destroy our children, knowing that the pornography harm the child mental health. But my question is, when you were a child exposed by those kind of things, you innocent, and I was wondering what was in your mind, why you think it was okay to look those kind of things. It was a curiosity or something I want to understand.
Yeah.
Yeah, in your child mind.
Yeah. 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 For me, well, I mean, I don't know if I was an innocent child. I know that we are born leaning towards evil, being drawn towards it. For me, when I was looking at these images for the first time, there was I was aware of this, of saying that, like, I knew my parents were hiding something from me, and I felt that they were hiding something from me. I know that when my parents were raising me, they would often tell me how to live my life, but as I started to get older, I started to ask them questions about how they do this, and sometimes they would tell me that they've never, they don't do it this way, but they know it should be done, and that's what they're teaching me. And so don't do what I say, don't do what I do, but do what I say.
Right.
For me, that became a source of kind of confusion for me as to why I was being told one thing that being told to do something that somebody hasn't by somebody who hasn't done it.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I'm watching pornography for the first time, I'm aware, and it's feeding on that, like, that there's a lie my parents are trying to tell me, and this is going to help me understand. So this is knowledge, and this is understanding that my parents are they don't want me to know. They've been keeping it from me because they want it all for themselves, or something like, but, and very much like, as I look back on it now, it's almost like, a bit of the knowledge of good and evil, right? Like, and I remember just being so, and I yes, I want to know the truth. I've always wanted to know the truth. Tell me the truth, right? And it helped get me sort of sucked in. So, yeah, I mean, for me, it was, yeah, there was some curiosity as to what this was about. I knew it was wrong. I knew this wasn't what I wasn't supposed to be seeing this part of these women that was reserved for their husbands.
Interesting.
And there's this other part of me, this whispering that had been, kind of happening as to, to pull me away. I do believe that there is, the deceiver, right? And I do believe that was well at play there. And the cracks had sort of started as I, would notice a difference between what my parents did and what they told me to do. And then, which I think is normal and good, right? They're trying to teach me their mistakes. They don't want me to repeat them. And they can't be perfect, and they are not perfect, and they shouldn't allow me to, to live out their flaws or anything like that without being challenged. And at the same time, so it gets in there at some point. At some point, it's going to get in there, and it did for me.
Yeah, and it's interesting how you talk about parent, and I know one day you're gonna become parent, you're gonna become a dad, and one day you're gonna have children. With the experience you had with that addiction, that exposition, you learn something because you over that today, you're a new creature. But one day you're gonna become a dad. What you think you would do to avoid your child you love so much to go through what you have been?
Wow.
Yeah, it's a big question.
Yeah.
It's a big question.
Do you think you're gonna teach sexuality to your children so they don't learn outside in a wrong way? Or you think you're gonna wait when it's time to tell them? Because your goal will be to protect them
Yeah.
against
Yeah.
that.
I know that kids these days, and myself, for example, my parents did their best. They talked to me about sex and kind of what that meant, and that it existed. They had that conversation with me, but the full on sort of reality of it, the pleasure aspect, for example, that wasn't discussed with me until much later. By that time, pornography had already become a part of my life, and so it is interesting that we have to beat the world to the punch with the kids, but you expose children too early, and it's not, there needs to be a healthy level and time at which certain things are revealed to children. To me, I don't have an answer. I mean, it really does seem like protecting kids at all costs in terms of like not allowing them to be exposed to that in the first place is just so important, and how that happens in a world where you send them to public school, and they would be sitting beside kids that have unfettered access to the internet, right? And so to try to balance that, I just don't know how that works. I don't know how that works.
Yeah.
I know that children today, sometimes they learn things we don't know at school. They learn things we don't know in internet. When I was growing up, we had a family meeting every week with our parents where we're gonna tell them things is in our mind, what we learn. Oh, my friend told me about this, and then that is like for me, example, when I learn about how a child be born, I talk during the meeting, Mom, Dad, I heard this, is that true? That is how a child come in the world, things like that. And then they took opportunity to talk to me about that.
Yeah.
Do you think communication, dialogue with children, so children can feel confident or not afraid to talk with parents instead to talk with friends? Do you think if parents do their best to put an environment, a healthy environment where kids can come to them to talk to them about things like that. Do you think that gonna help?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, we know that we know, like, yeah. I mean, when I say we, I think we can all
Society.
agree that,
Society.
that good communication between parents and children is of the utmost importance. Now, how that happens, I
We
mean,
don't know.
it is difficult. I know that, you know, not sharing information and hoping that a child won't learn about it, that just doesn't work, right? So it's something about, you know, there's something in there, it's in the realm of being completely and totally honest with, you know, my parents did not talk about, you know, like I said, the pleasure aspect of sex. That I didn't know about that. And so then to learn about it from somebody else, and then wonder, well, why didn't my parents tell me? It just feeds that sense of disconnection. I think it is scary as parents, you know, and for me, I mean, my motivation, if I were to have, if you know, if kids is going to happen for me, you know, it's not anything about me. It's about something that I'm doing for Christ, and I think it's just so important that we be around people of like-mindedness in that sense. You know, to you know, I don't know, lots of people, you know, parents that had kids for their own reasons, right? They wanted to feel good about themselves, or they wanted a friend, and so they decided to have children. When you have these differences in views, you know, I can imagine that's very difficult to segregate those differences. And so by the time a child's old enough to understand what pornography is, there can be very different views.
I think also about the prayer is Christian, family Christian, community Christian. We can really pray about this because it's too much. Sometimes we don't know how to do right. I think only Christ can give us that wisdom to know how to do that right to protect children.
Sure glad you asked him all those questions and not me, because I don't know if I had a better answer or not.
I'm
You
not a
know,
parent.
On the one hand, you wanna stop your child from ever being in a situation where they could be like that. You know. On the other end, you wanna have a good communication channel with them so that so they feel at least that they can come to you with anything, and that you're gonna have an open ear and a non-judgmental way to communicate with them. And on the other hand, you wish they would never grow up, you know. So it's I was just flipping through my camera to find pictures to. Gabby just got a phone, and I wanted to put a profile picture on her. And just flipping through there, looking at her pictures just over the last 3, 4, 5 years on that, and seeing how much she's grown up already, and wishing you could hold back the clock. You know? Yeah, that's tough questions. You know, how do you protect kids and that? And I do think a part of it is that education, you know, and telling them about who Jesus is, because if they have Jesus in their life already, I think that goes a long way. You know, there's boundaries that they come to instinctively know, right? And then
Excuse me.
Sure.
And knowing about Jesus, they will know that their body is the temple of Christ. So when you know that the body we have is the temple of Christ, we need to take care of that the way the Christ want us to take care of that. Oh, yeah, you can continue.
Yeah, good point. So on the one hand, you want the child to grow up and be confident and strong, and you know, to think on their own. And on the other hand, you never want to put them in a position where they have to, you know, protect themselves and such. That's a really tough question to answer fully. And if there's any viewers out there that have, and you want to weigh in on this, please say something in the comments, because we'd really like to carry this conversation on.
As a community of Christ.
Yeah.
Well, I think though, I mean, what I think too is, you know, just the challenge of, even as an adult, right, of resisting the temptation of, you know, of watching pornography. I still struggle, and in being pulled back into that, you know, remembering what it was like, and hearing that, oh, it used to be so good, right? Just come back one more time, right? That still is a struggle for me. And it's something that I pray for. I can't resist the temptation. For me, I'm powerless to resist it. Now I'm a fully grown adult with a fully grown adult brain, right? We can't expect our kids, even, you know, to resist that temptation. We all still have free will. We all have a decision to make. And unfortunately, I mean, kids, their impulse control is even less, right? We're talking like before the age of, I think, maybe 25, right? Their impulse control is less than ours. And it takes time, it takes discipline. It took me a lot of time and a lot of discipline to get to where I'm at today, where I'm not watching pornography. Kids, I mean, it's even harder for them. So to try to put that on them, it's an adult-sized problem on a child, right? And that's where I see the role of parents coming in is to step in front of that and to confront that by whatever means is necessary. But also recognizing that kids are going to grow up. That is what is going to happen. They're going to grow up. And so, you know, if my parents, you know, I know they didn't want me to grow up, but to deny that is also, you know, and to try to pretend that it's not going to happen also removes the fact that it is going to happen. It negates that fact that it is going to happen, and kids need to be ready. They need to be ready. It needs to be a regular, you know, constant communication that kids need to have. They need to have real controls and put in place. You know, and you know, I've mentioned school. I mean, I was homeschooled. My parents homeschooled me for most of my life. I understand now why, because you can't control what other kids are doing, what other kids are giving to your kid, but you have to control that. You have to be able to shut off and say you can't. I'm going to restrict your access to pornography, for example, because they cannot make the decision themselves, right? Mentally, physically, spiritually, they would not. You know, they cannot make that decision. It's not a guarantee. So it is, I think, to some extent, it's the role of parents to continually be challenged, and your kid is going to grow up, and you know, and you're going to have to keep them ready, or they will struggle.
Right.
And able to look their phone, what they're doing, not to sleep with their phone. You don't know what they're doing because YouTube, internet is there, and you parent, you the one who pay the phone. So you need to have that responsibility to know what they're really doing. And there is a story. In YouTube, they teach parents many tools how to know what your child is doing on the phone. And that is something we parents need also to learn, to know what they're doing. And when you don't do that, you're gonna end up to see your child killing herself, because those things bring your child in addiction, and addiction in a young brain, they start to feel like they're nothing in their life, there is no purpose, and that's, yes, hopeless, yeah.
Yeah, we see that. You know, I see that addiction in, you know, drug use, right? Especially cannabis nowadays. It's been legal here in Canada for a bit. Like, you know, cannabis and smoking, right, and alcohol and social media, and these are all addictive behaviors. They're meant to be. That's how the money is made off of them.
Yeah.
Is addiction, right? And so we have to remove that from the lives of our kids, because they cannot cope on their own. We can barely cope as adults. We can barely cope with these, and sometimes we don't, right?
Yeah.
So teach our kids, sometimes it's not about teaching them, sometimes it's just about making it happen until they can, and teach them along the way why.
I think I remember myself as a kid growing up. We didn't have a whole lot of sit-down meals, around the kitchen table. We would. I do remember Sunday night dinners, and it was everybody grabbed their meal and we'd go in and watch Walt Disney. And then when the commercial came on, Mom would say, "Okay, everybody dishes," and we'd all jump up and we'd attack the dishes. And so we weren't having those conversations and that around the table. And I really do think that those conversations, especially when you have more than one child, because one child will talk about something that another child would never talk about. But once they bring it up, that's a subject that the other child is still tuned into and listening to and hearing about, even if they're not the ones who brought it up. So I know that now we have a rule, for example, no phones at the table, no distraction like that. If the kid's eating by themselves and that, of course, they're usually on their phone. But when we sit down and have a meal together and that, we try to have that time where it's open discussion. And I think that's a step in the right direction.
Well, thank you so much, brother. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
We love you, and Jesus love you more. So
I don't want to let you go yet.
Okay.
I got a couple of questions for you.
Go for
So I know I asked you, what Jesus means to you, and we asked how things are going. It's only been a few months now since you were baptized.
Yeah.
And first of all, I've seen you mature, and my friendship with you has grown. But today, at worship, you opened today in prayer.
Yeah.
And even when we sat here today, you opened up in prayer. You're really stepping up. And what was that like? And who asked you to pray? Was it the preacher that came to you, or an elder? Or?
Yeah, Pastor Bruce asked me.
Oh yeah.
Asked me earlier this week if I would pray.
Yeah.
Yeah, which I immediately, I said yes, right? And when I asked to be baptized, he said, "Oh yeah, perfect. Okay, we'll get up in front of everybody and we'll do that." And I went, "Oh, it's in front of everybody." I thought we'd maybe go into the river, and he did have to remind me it was December and the river was going to be very cold. And I went, "Oh yeah, okay." But he said, "Well, is it okay if you baptize in front of everybody? Is that okay?" And I said, "You know what? I'm nervous, but it's important." So it was the same thing with when he asked me to pray. Okay, yeah, I'm nervous and I don't necessarily know what to do, but it's important. Yeah, of course, I got to do it at some point, or I want to do it at some point. And yeah, so he asked me, and I said yes. I knew that if I should probably plan something, I just didn't know how much I needed to plan, and so I just let God take that over, and I knew that I might, he would control the timing. So, Saturday morning getting to the church, I was reminded that I was praying today, and I knew, okay, you know what, I don't need much prep. If I did, God would have, I feel like reminded me, made sure I didn't forget, but, and so, yeah, it was simple enough, right? I knew that I didn't need to stress about it, but sometimes when I get into praying, I'll just ask for destroy my life and make me a new one and do it right now and I'm ready. And I knew I didn't want to go into it with too much gusto, but I did just write down some points, points that I thought was important, that we're going to hear a message.
Right.
That this message should convict us. It should change our lives. That is the point. And our lives all need changing in some way or another. And so just to ask to do that, and to do that within the faith and confidence of Christ, that we can look at our lives and the things that maybe we need to improve without having to feel guilt or shame. And then take that conviction and turn it into a call to action. And thank God for the gift of that. So that was my approach, and that just came to me as we were, I think, still singing songs. I was kind of jotting down some notes. And so, yeah.
So what did you think of the preaching today? Just curious.
Yeah, I enjoyed I enjoyed it. Yeah, this foundation series it's important. This is hitting kind of home for me, and it was convicting for me, because this is getting down to what I feel is the basics, and it's those basics that I'm struggling with, right, and that I'm working through right now. So it was, yeah. There's some ways that I've not been very kind, in my own walk, and that's exactly what I know that I need, is to be able to see that, be able to look at it, have that mirror, that light shone on it, and do it in a space that is with my family, right, and a space that's safe, and that I do not have to feel shame or guilt. I just have to, I just want to be better. I just want to do better at this. I want to. So I felt like, yeah, it's really good.
Is your parent knew that you were baptized?
I'm sorry.
Is your parent was there?
Well, they watched online.
They watched.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So I told them that they could watch online, and
Okay.
I think they caught it after their own service.
Okay, that's great.
Yeah, it is. You had said something there, and I just want to touch on it. You said sometimes when I get to praying and that, I just ask God to, what did you say, break me or something?
Yeah, destroy my life.
Destroy my life. We were talking earlier about that.
Yeah.
And we're talking about how we'll harden our hearts towards God. And it gets to the point where that's what has to happen, is everything has to be broken. Whereas if we're already broken before God, He can then work in our lives.
Yeah.
And when you said that, it just reminded me of the conversation we had earlier. And so I'd just like to encourage people not to harden your heart, but to open your heart up to the Lord, and to seek Him with all your heart, because He does crave that relationship with you, and really wants to have that relationship with you. I've heard different people talk about what quenching of the Holy Spirit means, and I really do think it's when the Holy Spirit pricks you on something and you ignore it, and that is what causes your heart to harden. And the more supple we can keep our heart, the easier it is for God to get through to us on things. And He does say that He'll give us over to our sins as well. If we do something and He convicts us of it and we don't do anything about it, He so desires to want for us to have that relationship with Him, but at some point He may just also give you over to that, so that one, you can find yourself in that hole and realize that you're in such a mess that you need Him. And then the other side of it is just too difficult to even talk about, the fact that He'd give you over to that sin, and then you would be fully engulfed by it. So I guess what I'm asking people to do is to really search your own heart and see if God's working in your heart, and if there's something that you need to go to Him about and talk to Him about. You got anything else you want to bring up?
No.
No. Okay, we're good. Cameron, thank you so much for spending that time with us and breaking bread with us today, and and even the friendship that has developed between us. And thank you for that. So,
Yeah. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Thank you for your work.
I wanted you to pray for any child out there who's still in that world of watching pornography, that God...
God, we come before you with heavy hearts. God, your children, literal children. Your creations are out here, Lord, and we are